Hello and welcome to today's episode of the Work at Home Rockstar Podcast. I am talking with an author of Life Switch. He's also the co-founder and co-owner of Steele Financial Solutions. And what he does through his book is he entertains and inspires people with the messages and lessons from it. And also as a financial advisor, he helps people with their finances and helps them prepare for retirement. So I'm super excited to be rocking out today with Joel Steele. Hey, Joel, you ready to rock?
Ready to rock. Let's do it.
Ready to rock, yeah. So we always start off here on a good note. So tell me a story of success that we can be inspired by.
Yeah, well, for me, the story and the book is, the main platform for this. But I had a restaurant business. I had a passion for fitness and having people eat healthy, and I tried to bring it to the world. And this restaurant started off very successful. I opened up several stores. I had a small chain at 24 years old, and ultimately it crashed and burned. And I got unplugged, and the music was turned off, and I did not have a chair to sit in. And that was the worst time in my life. And I felt like my life was over at 24. And I realized that, well, chronologically, I've got a lot more life left to go.
Yeah.
And so the good part of that story is that business failure is what led to me finding success in a different industry, the financial services industry, where I co-founded my company back 22 years ago. And this has led to the life I live today. It's been the hand that feeds everything. The sports teams that I own a part of, it's allowed me to be at every single sporting event or choir event for my kids. I mean, my kids are 17 and 15, and I've missed nothing. There's not one event that I've ever missed that I look back and have regret about. Instead, I'm happy and I'm proud that I've been able to be present while building my business over the years.
Wow, that is a huge success. I love to hear stuff like that because you hear people talking about success in terms of financial abundance and all that stuff, which is definitely success. But there's also the success of being there for and going through life and actually being present for all the events that happen and not being at the end of it and going like, oh, I missed all the firsts, right?
Right,
I mean,
right.
that's amazing, and to be able to have the ability to do it and also to have some financial success is a big success, right?
Absolutely. I always talk it to people, my clients, especially about the word rich. Rich means in abundance. It doesn't necessarily mean of money, but that's what everyone thinks about when they think
Mm.
of rich. And I have an abundance of love and memories and experiences because life, I think, is all about experiences, not how much money you have, but how much experience you've got out of this one life that you live. But it has been absolutely amazing to be able to have that time and the ability to do these things. And it's interesting for me and maybe anyone listening today. When I was younger, I was super ambitious and I still am,
Hmm.
but I had this goal. Like I was like, I don't want to just make $1 million. I want to make $10 million. I just had like, my eyes were turning green. I just wanted to go out and kill it and crush the corporate world and start a business and make a ton of money. And I didn't know. I was ignorant. I thought that meant success. I thought that was living a rich
Yeah.
life. And as I met my wife and eventually had kids, I realized that that was not at all what I wanted. Now, sure, I wanted to be able to have enough financial means to be able to live and have a great life, but to go try to be filthy rich, just to run up the score was completely empty and probably would have really destroyed all the things that were important to me. I think some people they keep score in life based on money, and that's not just the main scorecard, it's like the only one. And that's a losing game because you're never going to have the most money. Sorry to break it to you.
Yeah, now that's a good point too. You're never gonna have you're always gonna be fighting with somebody else. I mean, even if you look at the leaderboards of the richest people in the world, they're flipping around all the time. So I
Right?
mean, that's a tough game to be playing, right?
That's right. Yeah. So people need to really understand what game they are playing. How do you win, right? What are the rules of the game and how do you keep track of that score? I say like in baseball, you can keep track of the number of hits all you want, but at the end of the day, what wins games are runs on the board. Usually hits translate to more runs, but not necessarily. And so you could have one big error and that could blow the game. And in your life, you could have an error. You can fumble or drop the ball with your family or something that's important to you. At least you said it was important. But if you don't actually live out and are not present and see your priorities in front of your face every day, then they might go on the back burner. And the back burner can be a dangerous, scary place to be.
Yeah. Like you just said there, what you said was important is an important distinction because I think a lot of times people will say something and then not do it and then have these excuses on why they didn't do it, which I mean, but bottom line is you just didn't do it, right? If you said you were going to do it and you didn't do it, then okay, fine. Maybe there was some circumstances that came in the way. But then the next question I would have would be, okay, that's fine. Sometimes things do happen, but what did you do to stop that from happening the next time? Because these things tend to repeat themselves over and over, right?
Oh, 100%. Yeah, if you don't, hit the brakes, do a 180 or whatever you need to do, a K turn,
Yeah.
yeah, you're going to keep going down the same path. It's the same. Again, you picture being in your car. If you're on a hill and you're not hitting the brake, you're going to roll whichever way the hill is slanting. You have to take physical action if you want a different result. And so
Yeah.
I always say that if you want different results, you have to start thinking differently before you even start doing differently. Understand what you're trying to do, what you're trying to avoid. And I have a simple two-step formula for success in all things, personal and professional. It's step one, figure out what needs to be done.
Mm.
Step two is go out and do it. And most things in life, I think, are like that. They're simple to say and comprehend, but they're hard to actually do. But you need to physically apply that pressure and do the things that you know you need to do to get the results that you want to have.
Wow. So we already touched on the bad note a little bit. I think there might be a few bad notes right along the way, but I mean, that tends to be the main fear of most people is that they don't want to make a mistake. What happens if I fail? What happens if it doesn't work out? Right? All that kind of stuff. And I'm wondering, like, I mean, having been there, was that the biggest bad note? I mean, is there another one you can share with us? But also, you know, what did you learn out of that?
Yeah, well, that I mean, I learned a ton out of my restaurant business failing. But I'll give you a couple other things, and we'll circle back, I'm sure, to the restaurant later because that was
Mhm.
the most major turning point in my life. But there was other ones, younger, being younger as a young adult and a kid, I got caught up in the wrong crowd, and I started to do some things, some petty crimes. I didn't get arrested, but I was literally staring at a jail cell, and the cop told me to pick which one I wanted to be in and I just turned white. And thinking about my life was reduced to a choice of this jail cell or that jail cell. I'm thinking, what, like, where did I go wrong? But
Yeah.
I had an opportunity to reform and change without getting a permanent smear on my record, fortunately. And it got me to understand a lot of things. That there's a lot of good people out there that have gotten caught up in bad things. That if people are given a second chance or an opportunity, they can excel and give back to the world.
Yeah.
But it also got me to realize how much I not just enjoy helping people, but I need to do it. If I'm not helping people in some way, shape, or form, I feel almost like empty, like the life is getting sucked out of me. And I was able to take that love to help people, that passion, and apply it to different things. I tried to do it. I did it as a personal trainer, which went really poorly. Then I turned that around, and it went well, real well. Then I did it in the restaurant business for a while, and that didn't work out. But I just redirected that passion to help people to then helping them with their finance, helping them become financially independent and be able to retire, to have the money and more importantly, the time to do the things that they are passionate about and want to do in their life before the sand runs out of the hourglass. So learning in that low moment at a younger age that I need to help people really transformed my professional career to make sure that I wasn't just making money for me, but I was doing things to help people. And in the process of helping them become successful, I became successful.
Yeah. And I think that mindset is very important too, because I mean, business is all about solving problems. It's all about helping people. And as long as you have that idea of, okay, my job here is to help people, I think people get caught up in what they do, right? And they end up like, I mean, imagine if you had just said, oh, you know what, this business failed in the restaurant business. I just need to push harder, or I need to open up another business, like another restaurant. Like, and people will stick to it thinking that that's their identity. But really, what you want to do is you want it to help people. And so you can kind of flow into whatever the next thing is that's going to help people, right?
Yeah, totally. And it's funny you say that because I actually had a lease in my hand for a fourth store when the first three were kind of crumbling on a rocky foundation. I was burning money. I mean, $20,000 a month, you right
Mhm.
out of the gate. And this was back in 2004, so that's probably,
Yeah, a
closer
lot.
to $30,000 today.
Mhm.
But I just was so focused on this is going to work. I'm going to be the next Howard Schultz, Ray Kroc, Colonel Sanders, Tim Hortons, right? Whatever.
Yeah.
But I was thinking like that. I wasn't thinking what could go wrong. I was thinking, what if this goes all right? And my score I was keeping track of was not profit and loss. That looked like Christmas, but mostly red, not a lot of green. But some days were good, but mostly it was red. And I wasn't keeping track of that score as much as I was keeping track of the number of stores I had. That to me was like, okay, that's success. That's what I'm focusing on. But after a while, I realized that, you know what? This is getting to a point where it's just not going to work. It's like digging for oil and you get, 1,000 feet in the ground. It's like, do you really keep going at this point?
Mm.
And so I had to really take off my blinders and stop. But then it was looking at, well, what's the big picture goal for me? And the big picture was always to have a good life, to enjoy it, to be a family man, to have a successful business. And just because that business failed didn't mean that I was a failure. It didn't mean that I couldn't find success in something else. And that's why I tell people, don't be afraid of failure. Don't be afraid of experiences. Start saying yes to things. There's a funny movie with Jim Carrey from a number of years ago called Yes Man. And after saying no to everything for years and living a sheltered life where it felt like the walls were closing in, he feared everything. He started to say yes to everything. And he ended up creating an amazing life. Some things didn't work out well, some did, some were things you laugh about. But that's what creates, an interesting person. That's what creates a rich life is having things to talk about, to laugh about. You go out to the bar with your buddies to have a beer. It's, well, I went to work today and I went home.
Mm.
Okay, how was your commute? Like, who cares? It's like, tell me something interesting that happened today. I ask my kids that. What was the funniest thing that happened today? Was anything different happen in school this week? We don't like to do the same monotonous thing. We like to mix it up. Our brains need to be stimulated. We have all this amazing wiring in here, and it wasn't meant to be stuck living in a cubicle, going through the same hamster wheel every single day. It leads to rot, just completely like rotting away and wasting, I say, all the capabilities that we were blessed with the day we were born.
Agreed. Yeah, I agree. Well, and I mean, you and I are very similar in our outlook, right? Not looking at the bad, mostly looking at the good, very optimistic. And I think a lot of entrepreneurs are in that boat where we're not really, we just don't even want to look at the bad, right? Especially early on in the career, right? I'm wondering though, because eventually that does catch up. Okay, he caught up to me too. So eventually you do have to look at that. Now, I'm wondering if you were speaking to like your 20-year-old self and going like, hey, trying to give him advice, what would you say to that might actually get through to him to make him look at that, bad side, right, of it?
Yeah. It's such a tough question because I can honestly say if I would have known the challenges I would have had to go through for the restaurant business, I probably wouldn't have done it.
Okay.
And it's the same thing with my book. Everyone said, like, I wrote the book, like, I just did it. I just kind of got everything off my chest and put it out there and it ended up being like 310 pages in Microsoft Word, which is a mammoth document. I actually had to cut out about 25% of that. But reading books about how to write a book later on after that was saying, well, you need to do an outline. You have to do this, you have to do that. I'm thinking like, oh, like that's not me. I don't like to,
Yeah.
sort of sit down and put out my fork and my knife here and spread out my napkin. I just like start chowing down, And so look at the book, I just started letting it rip. With the restaurant, it was kind of the same thing. It's almost like, how do I deal with the negative and that kind of stuff and the reality? Sometimes I just don't because that's the best way to go flying through those obstacles is to just view them as like thin glass. I'm just going to bust through this. Like if you're punching through an object, you don't punch the object, you punch through it. And I
Yes.
guess I kind of view things like that. I was like, whatever the challenges are, I don't care. I'm going to do that. I'm like, here's my end goal, and I'll see you there. And I'll just figure out a way to get through everything else. So that's maybe, it's not unique, but I know not everybody thinks like that. But that's led to all the success I've had in every different industry. People tell me, well, I sit down, I plan out the month, the day, the year. That's great, but that's not me. I like with my financial company, especially in the first 10 years, I just put in as much activity as I could possibly put in each day. I didn't plan it. It was just every day, let's freestyle and have a jam session and go crazy and see how much activity I could generate. So I was kind of like, some people might not do well with that, because it's not structured. But for me, I was like, I don't want to put a ceiling on my output, my activity. I want to see what I can do. So I wasn't thinking about minimums or maximums. I was just trying to get out there and make it happen, not waste any time in my mind.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah. And I mean, when you do push through those things too, like you find out on the other side of it that you make the mistake. okay, I made the mistake. I learned a lesson from that one, and then you move on to the next one. Especially with with that kind of attitude, you're always just going to move to the next thing. So you might as well just get going, right?
Yeah, and I like to say too, I tell people when I do some keynote speaking to different financial companies and other organizations, but whether it's sales or financial companies, when I'm explaining to them, I say that bad activity is better than no activity
Yeah.
because you never know. Like I've had some like award-winning, terrible, like Razzie style like conversations on the phone where I'm like in my head, I'm like punching myself in the face. I mean, this is so bad. Like, what are you doing? And it's still had success at times because I was able to at least satisfy some minimum requirements for the prospective clients, like presenting investment solutions, talking about retirement, even though I'm thinking to myself, like this is a terrible performance. You know what? Sometimes it was okay. It still worked. And so bad activity is better than no activity. And think about this. If you're a musician and you're on your guitar or piano and you're just messing around hitting notes, like you might hit a note or put together a melody that you didn't plan to do. And it might be like, whoa, hang on, wait, do that again. And boom, all of a sudden, there you go. I mean, sometimes the best products, songs, thoughts come from accidents, come from trying things, experimenting.
That is absolutely true, right? And it is interesting that when you speak to some artists that I mean they do often say that it just came out of nowhere. And sometimes when you like you say if you put your fork and spoon out and you put everything out there and you try to do everything in a box, it ends up not really being very creative. It's just this cookie cutter sort of thing. And I think the same thing happens in business as well. I mean, if you try to plan and plan and plan and plan, you're just never going to get out of the gate. You might as well get going because I know with music especially, like so many things can happen on a stage. So many things. Like someone could fall into you while you're playing. Like literally, if you're in these little bars, like you can't plan for that. Like, did you have that figured out what you were gonna do when someone falls on you so that you don't mess up? Right?
That's right.
Like
Right.
it's just there's so much stuff that can happen. You're better off to just get out there instead of like overthinking everything, right?
Yeah, yeah, and something happens again. It's something you can laugh at, you can talk about later.
Yep.
You see some of these shows, you see the clips online. A musician fell on stage, and quite frankly, that gets more attention than if the show went on as planned. And that's why you want to embrace the good, bad, and the ugly, because sometimes these things are blessings in disguise. But very few things in life go according to script, and that's not necessarily a bad thing.
No. And people like to do business with people too. And the more human you appear through, just being human and making mistakes, sometimes the better that is. I mean, there are certain things. I mean, you don't want your doctor to be making a bunch of mistakes. But on the other hand, in regular business, if you're on a sales call with somebody and he's sort of like, dealing with his kid coming in the room, or there's like weird things going on that you don't think is professional, that might not necessarily hurt you. That might actually help you. They might think, okay, well, this guy's just like me. He's just got a lot more experience in this area that I'm looking to get into. And I like to talk to people that are normal, real people with more experience in that area. That's what I'm looking for.
Yeah,
Yeah.
totally. Yeah. And like you said, people like to be with other people, especially today when everything's, technology based and AI and,
Mm.
1-800 numbers and, virtual assistants answer the phone. Hey, no, I can help you. No, you can't. And not only people like, to work with people, but people like to work with interesting people,
Yeah.
that are seasoned, that have been out there, that have interesting things to talk about, but also that are relatable. That the thing about my book that I think stands out versus other personal growth or inspiring self-help books is it's super relatable. I'm not saying, well, I did this and when I climbed Mount Everest and after I got struck by lightning this happened. It's all relatable stuff that anybody can really do when you view it the right way. But that I think people want that more than ever before and will continue to find value in spending time with real people, interesting, relatable people.
Yeah, I agree. I agree. Especially the real people on the phone, like when you're talking to a business and the robot answers. I imagine that we're going to get to a point probably very soon, if we're not already there, where there'll be a lot of extra value if you are actually on the phone and talking to this person rather than them having to go through, the robot sequence to get to you, right?
Yeah, yeah, for sure.
Yeah. So, and th those are the things that kind of like it makes it a better playing field for the small guy, for the people just getting started out. Because in the beginning, you're probably not going to have this mammoth organization. You're just going to be you, and that'll actually give you a bit of an up of a leg up because you do have tools now. We do have lots of tools right now that can make us way more productive as individuals in business, and we can actually compete with some of the bigger businesses in a lot of ways as solopreneurs or as small businesses more than we could 20 years ago or longer than that. So, that to me is exciting. That means that there's a lot of room for new businesses to come on board right now because of this productivity that we have.
Yeah, I agree with you. With the fact that what we just talked about, the human touch, you can utilize that to your advantage, but you can use technology to make you appear as if there's more than one of you.
Yep.
And that can be some great technology to be able to hit people up, through the phone, through email, through different kinds of media, where it looks like there's four or five of you when there's really only one. But again, you're still giving that human touch. And knowing your business, and everyone's going to be different, but for my financial company, I give my clients my cell phone. I tell them, call me anytime. But you know what? They barely do it. But it's like they like to know that they can do it.
Yeah.
So I'm giving them my personal cell phone. I don't give them my assistant's phone number. Say, call me if you need anything, any time of day. If it's a reasonable time of day, my phone will be on. And most people don't do that because they don't want to intrude, but they appreciate it. So even when you're not actually there, you're sort of there in the background. And again, I think a lot of people like to know that you're there because we talked about people don't just like to be with other people, but they like to know that that person cares, that they're accessible and available. And again, that is not only never going out of style, but I think it's very stylish right now to be able to be accessible. If someone calls you, to not have a phone prompt system that has, 10 different options, and it's usually the one that the person's calling for is not one of those options.
Yeah.
So retaining clients happens when that client feels cared about. And that's just how you have to set it up. But again, there's never been an easier time with technology to sort of wrap your arms around your clients to make sure they know that not only do you care and you're there, but you can support them through the tools that you have.
I love that. Right on. So now you've been working from home for quite a while now, and I'm wondering, I mean, there's a lot of distractions at home. How do you set up your jam room, your home office to a point where you're actually productive?
Yeah, it's funny. My wife tells me that she goes, "You are oblivious. You sit down," and she calls it, "I have an island location," which you might think Caribbean islands or something like that, but it's just the island in the middle of my kitchen. That's my island location, and I'll sit there surrounded by everyone's glasses, like drinking
Yeah.
glasses. Crumbs and like pots and pans. Like I don't care. I don't even see that. Like I just see in my computer what I'm working on. So I can work from anywhere. I've worked, in the car, I've worked on planes, like I'm sure a lot of people that are tuning in today have as well. But I have an office. Ironically, it gets the worst internet connection in the house. So it's sort of like for show purposes only. I do meet with some clients in there. That's a good physical space to meet with people. And it's right when you come in the door, there's a bathroom there and all that, which works well from a home office deductibility standpoint.
Hmm.
You can't have a sort of your dining room table and say, hey, here's my home office, Mr. IRS auditor. I mean, you can try it, but it's probably not going to pass the smell test.
Hmm.
But I work in all different parts of the house. My favorite thing to do working from home, though, is to be out around the neighborhood walking and talking. I just more and more after 20 plus years can't stand sitting here looking at a wall on the phone, just sitting here stationary. I like to move. I feel like I have a lot of energy. I need to get it out, but I'm not going to just go for an hour walk in the middle of the day. There's too many things to do, but
Hmm.
I can walk and talk. I do a lot of client calls in the car. I call a lot of clients walking around the neighborhood. And they don't know that. They don't really need to know that. It doesn't matter where I am. What matters is that I'm present to make sure that their needs are taken care of.
Yeah. Awesome. Yeah. I'm the same way. I can work in a huge mess. No problem at all. But some people need to have a very clean desk in order to work, right?
Yeah, yeah, some people do. And that's the thing. There's nothing wrong with any of this stuff, being stationary, having a set time. Some people, they work from home if they're not structured, they're going to be all over the place. They might be watching The Price is Right. I assume that show's still on. They're probably going to take the pets out for a walk. They might do personal calls. They might realize they need to organize their closet and wrap their Christmas gifts or whatever time of year that it is. But you're right. You have to know yourself. You have to
Yeah.
really be honest with yourself. How am I going to make the most out of this day? And one of the things that I personally love to do is get my workout done first thing in the morning. So the kids go off to school. I have a gym in my basement. It's one of three gyms I'm a part of. I have two gyms outside the house. One is close to my house, one is close to my office, but I like to mix it up. But when I don't have a lot of time in a day, I'll run down and I'll be like halfway done my workout before I even am awake and realize what I'm doing to myself. But then I get that done and it's just like, check, I got something positive and productive off my list. Gives me more energy. I don't have to think about if I'll do my workout later because it's already done. And then it lets me lock in and focus on all the other things that I have to do because each day goes quickly. So if you lay it out right and don't procrastinate and don't just kind of kick things around until, oh, it's 4 o'clock. I need to get work done until 5. When you do it the right way and you know yourself, you can be super productive.
Yeah. Yeah, and knowing yourself is the important part. Now, another thing might be just also recognizing that if you don't work, you don't get paid. So, eventually that will catch up to you if you are doing a lot of like procrastinating. I wonder why people do procrastinate though in their businesses.
I think there's a sense of two things, maybe. One is that there's a sense of like unlimited time. Like I've got
Mm,
time. I'll do it later. I'll do it tomorrow. But at some point, I don't think that's the most productive way to live. I am a fan of get it while it's hot. If there's a wave, ride it while you can. You never know if there's another wave coming or not. But just get it done. Get it off your list because you have your list of things that you have to do. Then you have your list of things that you want to do. And the more you can sort of incinerate your to-do list, you can work on your, you want to-do list. And that's what I was able to do with my financial business. I would do all the things I had to do. Then I would sort of turn my hat around and be an author and then work on my book. So I would work on my book at night and weekends. I'd work on my book in the morning. I would, put my hat back to becoming a financial advisor and work on that all day, squeeze time in and I made it work. So you have to think about that. It's almost like putting hats on at different times of day. But if you don't get done these things you have to do to pay the bills and put food on the table, your day job, then you can't really start to get into the passion projects and the other things that you really want to do. So it's like I said before, figure out what you need to do and then get it done. And then once you get that done, now you're on to the bonus lightning round where you can do whatever you want to do.
yeah, yeah, exactly. And then I guess maybe another thing is if the thing that you have to do is really that bad, then are you actually in the right business, right? Because I
Right.
mean, as you mentioned earlier, you're in this business to help people, and if you are helping people, then there's some sort of satisfaction coming out of that. There has to be okay, I get it. Not every part of my business is fun, right? It's not
Right.
all the stuff that I want to do, but there is sort of this urgency to do it because I want to get that result of helping people, right?
Right.
Do you think maybe that might be it? Maybe they're just in the wrong business. Maybe they should figure out how to make that want a business now.
Yeah, that's such a deep conversation. And so when I talk about the life switch and being on or living on versus living off, living on is, seeing clearly what you want to do and knowing your why. Why do you want to do it?
Mm,
Your why is sort of like the premium octane fuel in your gas tank. If you have a why to do something, you're going to do it. If you don't have a why, a real reason to get out of bed and go to work and you fire up the computer, you're going to struggle. You're going to procrastinate. But it's, this world, it's like we grew up, went to school, it was like, okay, there's business, you can be a doctor, you can be an accountant, you can be a lawyer. But there's so many different areas within those spaces and around it that you want to really take inventory of what you love doing, right? What your passions are and what you're really good at. But if you can spend your day doing things that you really enjoy doing and things you're really good at, you are going to have a great existence and
yeah.
you'll probably make a lot of money. But if you are doing something you're great at, but you hate doing it, that's not going to work that well. If you are doing something that you're not that good at, but you love it, again, you're not going to get paid that well. So you want to marry those things together. And a big part of this, the starting point is to sort of shut out all the distractions and the noise, whether it's in the car, shower, going to bed, waking up, going for a walk. Really think about and tune in. What activities have you done in your life? And it can be back to when you were a kid, but what activities made you excited to wake up that next morning where you almost wanted to sleep in your clothes because you just were so excited to jump out of bed?
Yeah.
And start to think about how can these things be applied professionally, whether it's your current job, industry, company, you name it. Because, they talk about getting on the right bus. You're on the right bus or the right train. But then are you in the right seat? You might be in the right company, wrong job. You might be in the right industry, wrong company. And so you have to be really honest with these things to ascertain, am I where I should be? Is there a big change or a small change I need to make? And how can I maybe do that by trial to make sure? Because, when you're into your 30s, 40s, and beyond, you can't just quit your job because you feel it's lacking passion. You do have to pay the bills, like you said.
Mm.
But you really don't want to cheat yourself by just, well, I'm doing this to get paid, and one day when I retire, I'll do the things I want to do. I mean, that is taking years of your life and basically flushing it down the toilet. You don't want to do that. Yes, you need to make money, but you can find a balance or at least a plan of, okay, I'm going to do this job and I'm going to start to interject passion. I'm going to start a business from home or on the side. But don't just fast forward time and say, well, when I get to this point, I'll do this, I'll do that. And I can tell you, Tim, from experience, I've had so many of my clients retire and they have no idea what they want to do because they forgot. It's like Peter Pan who forgot, when he was a kid, right? It's like a lot of kids become hardened adults and they forget what they said they were going to do one day when they had all the time and the money in the world. They get to 65, 70, and they want to sit home. They want to do things that are comfortable. They've forgotten how to have fun. They've forgotten what passions are and who they are. And they become defined by their name tag, which is sad. You don't want that to happen to you.
Yeah. And I mean, just when you're 65, it's just a different time. Like you can't do all the same things at the same level as you could in your 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s, right? It's just
Yeah.
is what it is. But
Yeah.
that's extremely deep. And I think a lot of people probably fall into the category of they're good at what they do, but they don't like it. And that probably ends up being that they're very well paid. They're stuck in a lifestyle that now is dependent on that high pay that is the thing that they love, sorry, that they're really, really good at. And but there are ways. I mean, there are people out there. There's lots of help that can help you figure out because most people have quite a bit of transferable skills. Like,
Right.
especially if they're very, very good at something, there's a good chance that there's some fundamentals that they're applying that make them good at that could be applied at something else that might be a little bit more fun, a little bit more like alive for them, right?
Yeah, totally. Like if you are a musician or a dancer or you are or were an athlete, at some point or another you're going to reach the end of the road in that, right? If
Yeah.
you're in like a gymnast or a dancer, I see all these kids with like these casts on, like your body can only take so much of that.
Yeah.
But it's not the skill, right? So I'm a huge basketball fan. People like Steph Curry. It's not that he is a great three-point shooter. It's the tendencies and things within him that made him a great three-point shooter, that
Yeah.
helped him transcend and change the game of basketball. He didn't come out of the womb able to shoot threes. He had this burning desire, and his ability to work hard and be dedicated and determined and to think that I don't care how, short I might be or small I am in stature, like, here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to set the world on fire,
Mm.
by changing the game because that's how I think I can do it and it should be. But, when Steph Curry retires someday, he'll find success in other things if he can take those traits within him and apply them to other places. That's something Kobe Bryant did. Kobe Bryant became a very successful film producer when he retired because he was creative and great at telling stories. He wrote his own story as a basketball player. He was hero, the young teenager. Then he became a hated villain, and then he turned it around, and became a beloved superstar. He was in control of writing this story that he was aware he was very good at writing stories. And so everyone's got these traits and these talents and skills. And if you can think about how you can apply them, again, around your day job, if you can't do it within there, that's huge. And I'll give you a personal story. I mentioned before, I've been doing retirement planning for 22 years. I've got to tell you, it's very redundant and repetitive. And I don't like to do and say the same thing, yet I'm in a career where I do that all the time. If I have a choice, I take different routes in the car to get to different places, even if it takes me longer because I can't stand doing the same thing again and again.
Yeah.
I'm not a guy who can do like an hour, 2 hour commute in the car and not even think about it. I know some people that do that. Like that's
Mhm.
not me. My brain's too active. I can't sit still. But what I did was I started writing the books. I wanted to help people more than a one-on-one basis. I wanted to help people around the world, understand how much value they have, that everyone's wired for success and fulfillment, and they need to flip the power switch on. So that's why I started writing the book, and I was able to do it around the financial business. But the interesting thing, and this is a really key takeaway, is I spent so much time on that around my business, it actually re-energized me for the financial services business. I felt more appreciative of it because it put food on the table. I'm good at it, right? I wasn't loving it at times, but I actually appreciated it more because said, hey, this is a really good business. I am helping a lot of people. People do find a lot of value in what I say and what I do. So doing something else, diversifying my time and using my abilities actually helped me appreciate and not mind keeping going with the financial business. Because at one point I thought maybe I'll retire, I'll quit, sell the business and then become an author. But instead it's been much better to inject passion around it. And like I said, it's got me re-energized for everything I'm doing.
Love it. It's the same strategy I use. I've got my businesses. I build websites. I do tech support. I've got that kind of IT thing, but music is always there. I'm always playing multiple times in a week, and you're 100% right. You've got this like energizer that just keeps your spirit happy, right?
Right.
And then on the other hand, like you say, I mean, if your main business is helping people, and it really is, I mean, it really is helping people, then there's always that payoff at the end of it, right? You might have to do some little monotonous work to get to that point, but you're always happy when they come out of the call going like, "Wow, thank you so much. Okay, I feel better now." Right? So
Yeah,
you've got
totally.
that
Yeah.
going, right? Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. And I mean, if you're in a job where people say, "Hey, thank you so much. I couldn't do this without you."
Yeah.
Like, don't take that for granted. It's a big deal, to be able to actually help people and whatever you help people with, that's awesome.
Hmm.
But if you have a job where you don't get that, it's a thankless job and you're somebody who needs and wants that kind of gratification, then again, maybe that is the wrong position. But everybody has experience, even if it's just not even professional, something you went through personally, right? You can either say, well, that was terrible. I don't want to ever go through that. Or you had an experience that went well. You can take that and apply it. And there's so many different kinds of counseling and consulting you can do. Like I find myself doing more counseling and consulting than managing money some days because that's just what it requires. And I have such a large bank of knowledge and experience helping so many people over years and years that sharing that information is not let me tell you about me or tell you what I know. It's let me share some information that I think might be helpful for you. So everybody has this bank of experience and knowledge. The question is, can you monetize it? Can you extract value from it? Going through a terrible experience doesn't have to be all bad. There's almost always value that can be extracted from anything. And that's even to this day, it's like 20 plus years later, I dug up the horror and trauma of my restaurant business and I'm getting significant value out of it because I'm sharing it with other people, things that I learned, things that worked, things that didn't. And so now it's becoming way more valuable than just being a dead business in the past.
Wow. Joel, I'm excited to hear about your solo. So tell me what's exciting in your business right now.
The most exciting thing is the book, which is called Life Switch. It's exactly that idea. It's living on. As you can tell, I'm a high energy guy, and I feel like much of the population in the world, they're walking around off. They're almost like zombies. Everyone's glued to their phone. The people have the earbuds in. Like everybody is tuned out into other things,
Mm.
and people aren't tuning into themselves. And that's where all the answers people are looking for are at. So I'm trying to like yank out the earbud, turn off the reels and the Snapchat and all this other stuff and look in the mirror, tune into yourself just 15 minutes a day. And if you do that and you really understand how you're wired, you can get the most out of yourself. And the only way you're going to get the most out of the world around you is if you can get the most out of yourself. So I'm on this mission to help people do what I've done. That's to flip the switch, live on, thrive, not just survive, and realize that your potential is unlimited and you can do anything that you really focus on. Figure out what you need to do, go out and do it. Understand what your passions are, which is really interesting because everybody has different passions. And then purpose. We all should be working to define our purpose. And if you do that, like forget about your job title, and all that, think about your purpose. Like if you had a personal name badge on, what would it say? I like to help people. Like whatever it is, there's no wrong answer. But if people have a purpose and a why, people are going to be happier, more fulfilled. They're going to be more successful. They're going to be rich in every sense of the world. And I just think this world would be such a happier, more amazing place if more people were living on and not just drifting around living off. So that's what's going on for me. And so far, the feedback's been really positive. It's been doing exactly what I've been hoping it would do. And that's flip switches around the world to get people to live on and live for today and be excited about whatever can happen in each day.
Wow, that is an incredible mission. That's very spiritual too, isn't it?
Yeah, it is because it's really like who you are. And for
Mm.
some people, that's deep. People haven't looked in the mirror. They haven't really been super honest with themselves. And if you aren't honest with yourself, at some point, like you can't outrun yourself. And this is why some people retire and they still don't know what they want to do because they never dealt with it. I've got a friend, real quick story. I've got a friend, he's in my same industry. He's got a huge book of business. He manages over $1 billion and he makes millions of dollars a year. And he's been offered to sell his business for more money than he ever would need in his lifetime. And he keeps saying no because he doesn't know what he's going to do with himself. He doesn't know who he is besides a financial advisor. And so some people, and I like to ask this question, if you had all the money in the world that you ever needed, what would you do with your day? And a lot of people, they don't know. But my next question is, well, why can't you do any of that today? If you don't plan for it and know who you are, what you want to do, what makes you feel alive, you're probably not going to do any of this stuff.
Mm.
So you've got to learn how you're wired, what makes you excited, what gets you pumped up to get out of bed, and start to try to live a little bit each day with that passion, with that excitement. And you'll find yourself feeling almost like electrified, like just excited to be yourself. And that is the ultimate destination, right? They say life's a journey, not a destination. But ultimately, the destination that you're trying to get to is that when you wake up and go to bed, that you don't want to live anyone else's life. You just want to live your own. You want to be the best version of yourself. And if and when you get to that point, it is the ultimate high. And that's the goal of living, is to get the most out of this life.
I agree with you 100%. How do we find out more?
You can go to my website, real simple. It's bookjoelsteele.com. You can also Google me. You can Google Joel Steele Life Switch. You'll see other podcasts I've done, interviews and articles. You'll see my financial website. You'll see about the book and also my speaking career. And again, this is all newer. The book only came out a couple months ago, not even.
Oh,
And I've been giving speeches and keynotes about it. All these things we're talking about today, like I'm really trying to almost like shock people into like waking up to and tuning into themselves. But my website is probably the best place to go. You can get the book at Amazon, Barnes and Noble, most places where books are sold. It's ebook, audiobook, and of course, hardcover. But Book Joel Steele is the best place to go. And one final note is if LifeSwitch sells 1 million copies, I'm going to personally be donating $1 million to charities. And the readers are the ones who are going to pick the charities. So at the website, my website, you can vote for your charity, buy the book. But that is something that I have in my mind as far as the destination. Like I want to be sitting down on camera live, writing out these checks to charities because I just, like I said, love helping people, and together we can help out a lot more people.
wow. I can see you doing that too.
Yeah.
Right on. Well, thank you so much for rocking out with me today. Now, I've got one more question. It's probably the hardest one though. Who's your favorite rock star?
Favorite rock star has got to be Kurt Cobain. He just, took something that wasn't there and brought it to the world. And I remember it clearly. I remember watching MTV the first time ever that It Smells Like Teen Spirit was aired.
Mm.
And I was just sitting there casually watching it, and I was like, wow. Like I wasn't even like really, that into like hard, metal or anything like that. And it just blew me away. And even to this day, when I hear that guitar riff in the beginning of that, and just then the drums come in, it still gets me fired up. So that's my answer.
Awesome. Love that. Right on. So thanks again for rocking out with me today. This has been a lot of fun. Thanks a lot, Joel.
Thank you.
To listeners, make sure you go to workathomerockstar.com for more information. We'll see you next time on the Work at Home Rockstar podcast. Rock out.